have the most enormous big gay rainbow across my electorate.
I'm a lot of things, but with due respect, Helen, I'm not your boyfriend, that's for sure.
What New Zealanders care about is the size of the sausage, not how it's delivered.
Yes, indeed. Welcome to the half-hour politics on the panel. It's called The Whip. Coup chatter gets just a little bit louder. National open to repealing the Regulatory Standards Bill. What? How Winston Peters is poised to dominate the 2026 campaign. And once were friends, the Cook Islands and New Zealand. With me this evening, Andrea Vance, senior journalist at Stuff. Kia ora, Andrea. Lovely to have you with us.
Kia ora, how are you? Just having a wee party down here on my own again.
Again. We're going to sort this out.
I'm only teasing you now.
We're going to sort it out. All right, no, it's lovely to have you on, Andrea. And Jonathan Milne, journalist at Newsroom. Welcome, Jonathan.
Kia ora. And
joined by, for the first time on the whip, the current chair of the Henderson Massey Board in Auckland, former minister in Labour, and also, if memory serves me correctly, was he New Zealand's first openly gay MP, Chris Carter, former minister for local government, and others. Chris, kia ora. Great to have you here.
Well, Wallace, I'm just amazed that you thought to invite me, so here I am.
How are you?
Grateful to be on
How are
air
you?
again with you.
Yeah,
yes.
Good on you. All right.
My pleasure.
It's a action-packed lineup, so let's get straight into it. And first, as we always do, it's the whip quiz. Bit tricky, so really think hard about this. Let's go back to the mists of time, 2014 at least. Who is the speaking and who is the party?
I am disappointed, I guess we all are, by the party vote. 0.7, only one MP. It's a terrible disappointment. It's not the result of a lack of effort. You guys have worked fantastically hard. I am humbled and honoured by the effort you put in. Some of you have been so kind to me.
Gosh, it seems so long ago. Who is that person? And what was the party? 2101. Now, the Regulatory Standards Bill, we knew you so well. With the bill just a week old in law, Winston Peters confirms he'll be campaigning against it next year. Labour does a happy jig and welcomes New Zealand First aboard its electoral sloop. Then today, Nicola Willis suggests National could join Peters and campaign on repealing the law. Leads us to a question, what the heck is 2026 going to look like? Andrea Vance, you wrote about Winston this week. What's your take on this?
Oh. Well, it's just the old classic political manoeuvring, isn't it? I am surprised at this fuss about Regulatory Standards Bill. Because the Act itself is, pretty technical. And whether voters understand it enough or even care about it enough to make it an election issue is another question. So I guess this is what I'm trying to say. It's more about politics than policy. I think there's two issues. It raises questions about the credibility of coalition commitments. So if you vote something in, can you then really turn around within a matter of weeks and campaign against it? And we just look at it as New Zealand First and National keeping their options open. They're positioning themselves ahead of the next election and doing that classic thing of trying to differentiate. I also think as well that we have to remember that this is just Winston Peters at his absolute best. It's his playbook. He stands apart from his partners and he'll turn around and attack cabinet decisions that he's previously shared responsibility for, and he pivots to wedge issues. So some people like it. It's a strong and independent voice in a turbulent time, and others find it quite unsettling and troubling to see these splits in coalition agreements.
Well, that's right. I'll come to you, Chris, very soon. What's in it for National to keep it open like that?
I think this is delightful. I think this is excellent politics by National and by New Zealand First. Because the thing with the Regulatory Standards Bill is it doesn't matter. And I'm sorry, because I know that there's a lot of people out there who think that this is the end of the world. That this is this is fire and brimstone. This is terrible. It doesn't matter. It's a bill that basically sets in place a few sort of hopes and dreams and aspirations of David Seymour's, but isn't really enforceable, won't have much impact. Why it's great politics for New Zealand First and National is because it allows them to distract us away from the stuff that really matters, like health and education and housing, onto this, in my view, pretty immaterial bill, and take it straight into the election. It's the sort of thing they can easily change after the election at no cost whatsoever. It's very much like National Party going into the election and say we're going to remove the unemployment remit from the Reserve Bank, which was the first thing they did when they were elected government this time round. Cost them nothing, made very little difference, but it was good politics.
Chris Carter, let's bring you in.
Well, I agree with what Andrea and Jonathan have been saying, but to me, of course, it indicates totally that we're in a full election mode now. And I think that Winston's words weren't surprising for the reasons that both Andrea and Jonathan touched on. But actually, of course, Nicola Willis's words are quite significant because it shows that they can just assume ACT is always with them. They've got no wriggle room. There's no other potential coalition partner for them. But New Zealand First, of course, is up for the play. And so, Wallace, this morning I was at a Business West breakfast in West Auckland, and who should be the guest speaker but none other than Deputy Leader of New Zealand First, Shane Jones. And one of the Westies present asked the question that's on all our minds to Mr Jones, will you go with Labour after the election? It was a very equivocal answer. So once again, we're seeing it play out. Winston's been with National twice and he's been with Labour twice, and he's going to play the dance again, I think.
Do you have any, if you were to put a $20 on it, Chris, which way would you go?
Well, I'd put $20 that he'll go with Labour. We'll see if I'm right, but that's where I think he's going.
Andrea?
Oh, God. It's a mugs game gambling on what Winston's going to do. It could go either way, and that's the whole point, isn't it? That's what we do in election year. We just back and forward, what's Winston going to do? Who's he going to go with? And it's so boring, but, bring it on 2026.
Well, not Chris Carter. He's putting a stake in at $20. Winston will go with Labour. Interesting.
It does worry me that our actual governing period is becoming so compressed now. We essentially saw a Labour government that thought it was going to be there for 9 years, only got 6 years, only had 1 year of governing, 2022. Everything else was COVID or campaigning. And now we've got a government that's 2 years in, we're straight back into campaign mode. Shane Jones, Winston Peters. I talked to Shane Jones last week. All he wanted to talk about was what they were campaigning on for next election as New Zealand First. He didn't actually want to talk about government. He's in cabinet. Campaign
mode, as Chris says. All right, with Andrea Vance, Jonathan Milne, two journalists, with former Cabinet Minister Chris Carter to this. Speculation about Christopher Luxon's job prospects is rampaging through the political landscape. Chris Bishop's announcement of the regional council reforms briefly became a swarm of denials when asked if he was planning to roll as boss.
No, definitely not.
You're not saying that he is the best person to lead the National Party.
No, I think I did. So I'm not trying to avoid answering the question. I'm saying he's doing a fantastic job.
He's the best person to lead the National
Party.
Correct. He is the best person.
Absolutely, he's doing a wonderful job as Prime Minister.
Why do you think there's so much chatter?
I don't know. I think people are interviewing their typewriters, to be honest.
Is he convincing, Chris?
Well, it'll all depend on the opinion polls, won't it? Let's just see how that plays out for the next 3 months. I would think that the Tax Union Courier poll was went off like a torpedo in the National Caucus. But it's early days yet, and but it's not much time left for a change. Yeah. So let's just see how the polling goes. That Ipsos result saying that people had more confidence in Labour than National over the economy, and I think Labour won on every point except law and order. That's also a dark cloud.
Before we go to the journalists, do you have any insights to give us in terms of inside the tent? When do the alarm bells ring when a leader... I can recall very early
How do you run a coup, Chris?
Yeah.
Well, you might remember there's the famous picture of Helen Clark sitting at my dinner table in 1993, but when we've still remained very close friends. But look, there'll be a lot of national backbenchers who are in marginal seats or are in spots on the list that they feel vulnerable in. They'll be the first to get the shakes.
I think 9 or 10 MPs, Andrea Vance.
Of the caucus are staring down the barrel of the dole queue next year. I think, one thing bearing in mind that I wrote a whole book about National and its internal divisions, I think what's quite interesting about this current round of favoured speculation is that internally they've actually kept a lid on these discussions, these internal discussions.
Right.
And as Chris Bishop, he did say it's a lot of interviewing the typewriter. I would slightly not characterise it in that way because it's informed speculation. But I think what you've got to remember is this instability about a leader is the worst thing that could happen to a political party, and it's also a self-fulfilling prophecy. And it's going to have real consequences for MP morale, and also because they're starting to fill their war chest, that's going to filter down to donations. So that it's really worrying for National. And I think we've got to the point now where speculation absolutely colours everything that Christopher Luxon now says, and he does. Every time he gives a speech, he's asked about a new poll. Every policy announcement is viewed through that lens of, is he doing this because he's trying to shore up his support? And it's just become a doom loop with the inevitable consequence that he will eventually, and I wouldn't want to put a time frame on it, but maybe we'll have a bet with Chris, $20. But it is going to happen eventually, you know.
Yeah. Is that right? Do you think he will go?
I think it's going to happen sometime. I don't think that Christopher Luxon is going to be the man who's going to lead National into the 2026 election, but you can hold me to that next time.
All right, that's Andrea Vance saying that Chris Luxon is not the man who will lead National into the next election. Jonathan Milne.
Yeah, I'm putting my money the other way, Andrea. Sorry. Well, I guess we've got a bet on. Look, you look back at prime ministers that have been rolled in office, and I've done it. I've done a bit of Wikipediaing, authoritative sources as always. Sid Holland, Longy, Palmer, Bolger, they were rolled. Their successors, the people who rolled them, lost the next election. Norman Kirk died, and his party still won the next. Lost election. And to counter that, and this is what Luxon supporters will be looking at, Muldoon in 1980 headed off a Bolger coup and went on to win the 1981 election. So it can be done. You can come from the depths of polling and bad reputations, escape a coup and go on to win.
Okay, there you go. So Andrea and Jonathan disagrees on this. Chris?
The jury's out for me. I think that many of the National Caucus will be realising there's a lot of risk in changing, but there also seems to be quite a lot of risk in keeping him. I think that there's definitely a negative feeling towards him in the country. The business at Waiheke, for example, where he got his rates down by $8,000 and he's a millionaire, for that sort of stuff for ordinary New Zealanders, they just don't like it. And they think this rich man, how could he save $8,000? And I think it's very hard to turn that sort of bad image around. I mean, Dutton in Australia is a good example. The Timu Trump, and once he was branded, and wasn't it a brilliant brand, Timu Trump? Once he was branded, it was very hard to get away, and that happened about the same time, about a year out from the election. And, Albanese was returned with an increased majority. So, it's not looking good for Luxon, but whether they'll have the guts to do it.
Someone says, I feel the panel misses the point about Luxon. He is managing his team really well on the whole. He's putting the right people in the right job, and he's not focusing on taking the limelight for himself. That's a great leader, Andrea.
He's put all the right people in the right job apart from himself, judging by the polls. I'm sorry. I will agree to disagree with your correspondent.
All right, very good. Okay, so let's go to the quiz. Let's go back to the midst of time. Who is this speaking? Who's the party?
I am disappointed, I guess we all are, by the party vote. 0.7, only one MP. It's a terrible disappointment. It's not the result of a lack of effort. You guys have worked fantastically hard. I am humbled and honoured by the effort you put in. Some of you have been so kind to me.
All right, don't say who it is. Chris, any inkling?
Is it Rodney Hyde?
No, it's not. And a lot of people are saying it's Raf Manji. It's not. Let's see if Alan has it right. Kia ora, Alan.
Kia ora, Wallace. Good to be here, Quay.
Hey, ka pai, how are you tonight?
Yeah, ka pai, yeah.
Now, all right, have a go. It's not Rodney Hyde. It's not Raf Manji. Who do you think it is?
I think it's Jamie White from the ACT Party.
hole in two. How about that?
Thank you.
It's. I was going to ask what gave it away. I mean, it's quite a hard one, Alan.
Well, so there's a couple of things. So 2014, and I knew ACT had gone through a pretty tough sort of a blimmin' time. And then it was his voice. It's almost a Keith Holyoake voice, that plum in the mouth, super superior. He never went to the same university as you. He went to an upper crust sort of university, if you know what I mean.
Yes, he didn't
He
go
never
to.
played in a band.
No, I don't know if he played in the band, but that's right. He did. Jonathan, he did go. He was a libertarian from Oxford or something like that, wasn't he?
Oh.
Yeah.
Jamie
I feel
White.
like he was English.
Yes.
He
Andrea?
was Kiwi, but he spent a lot of time in England.
Oh, really?
And I think he's gone back there now. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
I spent a bit of time with him in that election campaign. And obviously his defeat then gave rise to David Seymour.
And here we are today.
Here
Very
we
good.
are, yeah.
Alan, kia ora. Thank you for your time. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Wallace. All the best, mate.
Very good, very good. Now, if you just joined us, we have Jonathan Milne, Andrea Vance, and we have Chris Carter. Now, Regulatory Standards Bill, we knew you so well. With the bill just a week old in law, Winston Peters confirms he'll be campaigning against it next year. We've done this, haven't we? We talked about this earlier. So we'll just move on, actually.
Thank God, I thought you were going to ask us again. I was like, I don't have that many thoughts on that subject.
Have we done regional councils? It was a bit of a bombshell yesterday. Regional councils could be gone, replaced by boards made up of regional mayors. It's the government's proposal to extinguish a layer of local government and simplify the system and bring down the rates. Regional Development Minister Shane Jones is all for it and reckons the public will be as well once they realise what it'll fix.
This is a burden of cost. We have had green overreach, we have had hapu overconsumption, and we have stifled growth.
Well, it just so happens that we have a former Minister for Local Government in the House, Chris. Now, what do you think? Do these proposals, I mean, they're pretty significant.
They are.
Very significant.
But of course, the hype around it was abolition, but it's actually amalgamation. So the territorial authorities that are grouped into these 11 clusters, the mayors of those councils will sit now as a sort of board of trustees, if you like, of this new entity. And they have 2 years, don't they, to come up with a plan. But then the Minister of Local Government gets the chance to say yes or no. I never had that power when I had the job. Look, amalgamations can be very sensible sometimes, but you have to, it has to be a process that you take people with you, that you can't impose things on them. So, look, I remember when I was the Minister of Local Government, we had 7 authorities in Auckland, including the Auckland Regional Council, and we could never get any of them to agree, which is why we've ended up with one unitary council now. I don't think clustering the mayors into a group and saying to them, well, you boys and girls just come up with a plan, I think that's going to be pretty hard to do.
What do you think, Jonathan?
I think that we do have too many layers of government for a small country. There's 5 million of us. We don't need to be electing central, regional and local. The government has chosen a quite radical approach of basically throwing everything up in the air and letting the existing mayors catch it and put it back together again. My concern, I'm relatively sympathetic. I do think it needs a big restructure, and I do think the regional councils have a narrow mishmash of responsibilities. It doesn't quite work. But my concern is that every region's going to put it back together in a different way, and we're going to have the same level of uncertainty that we currently have at present, the same level of inconsistency.
Okay, I mean, in Wellington there, you got the Wellington Greater Regional Council, Andrea. What do you got in Christchurch? You got ECAN, the Otago Regional Council. How do you see this playing out? It's quite big news this week.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with Jonathan. The need for local government reform is well overdue. But I think that the way that they've done this is chaotic and pretty badly timed. I think it's interesting that we knew that that some elements within the government wanted to see the back of regional councils, but there was no strong signal of this ahead of the local body elections, which we've literally just had. And I think the messaging from Chris Bishop yesterday in particular was very dismissive, and that's the way that this government has continued to see local government. The reforms rely on cooperation between the mayors and the councils, and there's no real incentive for them to make it work. And I think Jonathan does make a good point that they're going to carve up these rivers, because that's essentially what the regional councils are based on, catchments, and councils in a patchwork kind of Frankenstein way, which is going to create conflict, not efficiency. I think there was much better way of doing this, and like I say, the timing really compounds the problems, because councils are already pretty front-loaded with work. They are going to have to deal with the upcoming RMA reforms that Chris Bishop is about to announce in the next few weeks. Over the summer, they've had minimal consultation over this, and I don't see how this aligns with the government's broader policy goals about inflation management and urban-rural planning. I think they could have done it much more deliberatively, methodically, and getting everyone on board, like the Auckland Supercity model, which was very, they had a royal commission and a body in between to implement it. And I just don't think that this is going to end up with any lasting improvement. And I think the conflict, they've lost the real opportunity to reform, and I think the conflict means that it's going to fall apart. Something similar to the way that the previous water reforms has done.
How interesting. That's interesting, comparing it to the process. Chris Carter going through the Royal Commission on the Supersea. Rodney Hyde, didn't he? Kicked it all off.
That's right.
And it was massive, and it took years.
Yeah, well, as I said earlier, Wallace, you have to take people with you, and you have to explain the logic of what's happening. And allowing a group of self-interested mayors to come up with a plan is going to be a fraught process, as Andrea has just described.
Jonathan Milne, Andrea Vance, Chris Carter. Now, it is 6 away from 8. Thank you for your feedback to 2101. It is. The running stoush between New Zealand and the Cook Islands is straining a once stable relationship. New Zealand's direct funding to the Cooks remains paused after what Foreign Minister Winston Peters called a breach of trust. Under a 2001 agreement, the two nations have to consult with each other on defence and security issues. Peters says the Cook Islands government signed a strategic partnership with China without telling New Zealand first. Now, Jonathan, you've covered this. You worked as a journalist in the Cook Islands. What's the fuss about here?
I remember patching into this show from Avarua and Rarotonga a couple of times during COVID. It feels a lifetime ago now. We've got two things going on here. The one is that Winston Peters and Mark Brown are being a little petulant, in my view, and I think I've said this before, and we need to remember that the $30 million of development support that New Zealand has paused to the Cook Islands is money that should be going to primary health, to education, to developing their tourism. So there's a real cost to the people of the Cook Islands, to our friends and family in the Cook Islands, because of this spat between two men who frankly should know better. That said, increasing every week that goes by, Mark Brown is digging his hole deeper. The Prime Minister of the Cook Islands just seems determined to heighten the war of words, use stronger and stronger language to upset Winston. And of course, we had the revelation this week from Matt Nippert in the New Zealand Herald that there was a large number of Russian, Iranian, North Korean dark fleet oil tankers that were flagged to the Cook Islands to a privatised little flag registry that pays a fee to government. This is a very bad look for a country like Cook Islands. It's been through its share of international scandals before.
Hey, Chris, I mean, Mark Brown, the Prime Minister, he says, look, they are not under anyone's domination or control. It's their call, ultimately. They are the Cook Islands.
Yes, but they carry New Zealand passports and they have a connection to us. I mean, there are, 12,000 people there, and there's 90,000 Cook Islanders living in New Zealand. We are inexorably linked very closely. What I'd like to add to what Jonathan said, and I absolutely endorse what he said earlier, is that what amazed me is that our security services were so slack and incompetent over this issue. The government appears to have been completely blindsided. devastated by the Chinese agreement earlier. And as for this new revelation about the dark fleet of boats, licensed from the Cook Islands, I mean, why wasn't our Security Intelligence Service alerting the government to this as it was happening?
I think they actually were. In fact, was raising concerns a year ago about this, and the New Zealand government did write to MFAI, their counterparts on the Cook Islands, saying, "Hey, we're pretty worried about what you're going on here." And after that, the Cook Islands government has kind of read the writing on the wall and started to pull back, started to audit this flag registry that runs out of an upstairs office.
Let's bring Andrea in. What's at the heart of this? Is this the Prime Minister actually putting a stake in the ground and saying, you know what, we just want to be ourselves?
I think there is an element of that. And I should say that the rest of the world is watching this very carefully. The Foreign Diplomatic Corps is watching and how New Zealand handles this very closely, because obviously it speaks to the rise of China in the Pacific, so it's very important to the rest of the world. I think that it's not a great look for New Zealand. I think it's a clear failure of diplomacy and its leadership role in the Pacific. I think that it's interesting that we talked about the government's heavy-handed approach to regional councils. I think you can see something similar here. Look, it's not great that they're going to align with China, but I think that we have to remember that they are a self-governing state in free association.
But are they?
Well, they're not a dependent territory, and they do have the legal capacity to sign those agreements independently. And as far as they're concerned, they followed established protocols with China. Like, I'm not saying it's a good thing that they got into bed with China, but they believe that they do have the ability to do that. And I think the initial position of New Zealand very much sent the wrong signal, and it caused, as Jonathan said, Mark Brown to kind of dig in a little bit. I think they've had a bit of a reset and they're re-emphasising dialogue and negotiations.
Jonathan wants to jump in, but he can't. We're at the end. Someone says this program is way too short. It should be an hour. Oh, an hour's a long time.
Well, I don't have an hour's worth of thoughts.
No, exactly. But you have been fantastic, all three of you. Kia ora. Thank you. Andrea Vance, Jonathan Milne, Chris Carter. Really appreciate it tonight. Thank you. That is the whip for another session. Stay with us. RNZ National. Emile Donovan coming up.